Assalamu alaikum and hello everyone. I'm your host Henna Zubairi and welcome back to another edition of Justice for All Now. We're airing on Muslim Network TV and you can watch us on Galaxy 19, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV. The Chinese government has previously condemned their practice of detaining an estimate million, some say 3 million, some say much more, people, most of them Uyghurs, in internment camps. These so-called educational camps are basically prisons for Uyghur people. We talk about this a lot on Justice for All Now. The people are held involuntarily and subject to forced ideological and behavioral re-education. Between 2017 and 2019, it was estimated that around 80,000 Uyghurs were transferred either from the autonomous regions or directly from detainment camps to forced labor for factories. Today, our main show, the crux of our show was going to be boycotting China, why we need to be boycotting Chinese material goods, our Fast from China campaign, but today's show is going to took a much more serious turn by the report, the latest Associated Press report that has just come out about the forced birth control and sterilization of Uyghurs and other ethnic people. This is a confirmation of Justice for All's stance that the Chinese oppression of Uyghurs and other ethnic groups is a systematic and slow but progressive burning genocide, a physical genocide, not just a cultural genocide. Chinese government is taking draconian measures to slash birth rates amongst Uyghurs and other minorities. It's part of a sweeping campaign to curb the Muslim population, even if it encourages some of the country's Han, just as it encourages the country's Han Chinese majority to have children. Joining us today is a Uyghur activist, Rukiye Turdush. Rukiye she's an active Uyghur activist and former president of the Uyghur Canadian Society. She studied international development and social work in Canada. She's an ethnic Uyghur who was born in East Turkestan. She migrated to Canada in 1990, where she studied international relations at the University of Windsor and obtained a postgraduate degree at George Brown College. She's a human rights activist and main contributor at the Uyghur Research Institute. Thank you so much for being here, Rukiye. Can you pronounce your name? So I want to make sure I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Walaikum salam, Hannah. My name is, you pronounce very well, Rukiye Turdush. And by the way, I immigrated to Canada in 1999.
1999. Okay. I think that was probably around the time I come here to go to college, and then I got married in 1999. So that's around the time I came to the United States too. So, alhamdulillah. So your journey has been, so you were born in East Turkestan, did you come as a student or?
Oh no, my dad was business immigrant, and my dad gave me sponsorship. So that's how I immigrated to Canada.
You immigrated, and what were the conditions like in East Turkestan around the time you immigrated?
At that time, it's just start worse. When I was a child, the 1980s is not that much worse. We don't have that much Han Chinese population in the region. Starting 1980s, they built railways, 2 railways and fast railways, and there's so many Chinese were immigrated to inland China, and the Uyghurs were economically started segregate. They were segregated Uyghurs economically, and there's a lot of political pressure as well. When I back to around 1994, I think I studied in inland China in Shanghai, and when I graduated university, when I come back to the Urumqi, situation is get worse before when I was compared to when I was in high school, because at that time people who finished the university, the Uyghur kids, university students, when they graduate, they cannot find job, and even you have a diploma, they don't give you a job. Only they hire Chinese. Even the Chinese people doesn't have any degree or diploma, they just hire Chinese, and But that's a kind of pressure, and also there's a lot of conflict and Buja incidents happened at that time to 1997, right? So it's a tension was raised at that time. It's a strongly that tension was start at that time, and my brother was killed, and so like um, because my brother does he against the Chinese immigrants, like they flowed into a lot of every year millions of Han Chinese immigrants came and they taking the job and everything. How they get, because the Chinese government paid to them if they come to East Turkestan, they paid to them at that time $30,000, 30,000 Chinese yuan cash, and they give them free housing. So they came and they take the house and the land, free everything. So like the Uyghur people were angry. My brother was 18 years old at that time with his three friends. He angry and he just blocked the highway to don't let those the buses transferring those Chinese people enter the city. And then there's a clash happen and he was killed at that time. And so like since was always we had a clash and a conflict between ethnic Han Chinese and the Uyghurs, and the Chinese police and Chinese soldiers always taking side of the Han Chinese people, and the discrimination was very high at that time too. That was the situation.
And so, just to put this in context for our viewers, that East Turkestan is an occupied country.
Yes.
And this is a typical of settler colonial state, is to bring in people from their own mainland into the occupied territory. And so this has been happening for how many years?
In 1949, we had only 6% Han Chinese when China colonized in East Turkestan. The Chinese state before it is empire right now. We can't say China is nation state because before China established it was Manchu Empire, right? Manchu is totally different than ethnic Han Chinese. That empire colonized East Turkestan in 1884 and changed the name to Xinjiang, which means new dominated land. And then 1949, that new China was built, right? They uprising, the Chinese people uprising, overthrown the Manchu Empire, and they built a nation state. But at that time, we against the Manchu Empire and the Kuomintang, the militaries, we fight against them. We established East Turkestan Republic 5 years, 1944, 6 years before, 5 years before than the Chinese nation state, China. So 1949, they invaded to us. Before they built a Chinese nation state, China's founding father Mao Zedong and Sun Yat-sen, if you check Mao Zedong's essays, is 1939, it's on the web. And the Sun Yat-sen's reconstruction of China at that time, 1921, they all say that we have to annex these border territories not belong to China, and we're gonna assimilate those non-Han Chinese people into ethnic Han Chinese. They wrote like that. They planned at that time before they invaded East Turkestan. So we were an independent republic in 1949, 1944. We established East Turkestan Independent Republic at that time. But 1949, after they were invaded, the world just the United Nations and other countries that just they closed their eyes, because at that time, as everybody against imperialism, and that was a decolonization period. So they should not invade it. If they are China is nation state, they should not invade Tibet. They should not invade East Turkestan. They should not invade Mongolia. But they invade, they expanded their territory, become empire, and but they call themselves as nation state. And now they, following their founding fathers, the views, they want to make everybody ethnic Han Chinese right now. So the Uyghurs are strongly, the Mongols, most of them have become ethnic Han Chinese. I think they were easily assimilated. Many other nationalities you cannot find out. They are assimilated and become Han Chinese. But Uyghurs, because we are Muslim and we are ethnicity, their ethnic culture is totally different than Han Chinese. It's a very difficult for China to assimilate Uyghurs and make them ethnic Han Chinese. And that's existence of Uyghurs and other Turkic Muslim population in the region. It's remind China all the time that they invaded this country and this country is not belong to them. The
Mm.
existence of these people of East Turkestan itself is threat for them. They never feel relief. That's why they just would like to eradicate Uyghurs and other Turkic Muslims in the region.
And this is the reason why that we are seeing now Uyghur activists and others have been saying this for years that China has been trying to decrease the population through many methods, including forced sterilization, abortion, all these other things that just came out in the report today. And you do research on this. You have interviewed and shown the world some of these mothers who have gone through these tactics of children being snatched from the parents. If there are more than three children, they're being detained in these concentration camps. So tell us more about that.
What China doing is through birth control policy, preventing Uyghur population grow is already many years right now. The Genocide Convention's Article 2D has been violated by China as it has imposed measures on Uyghur population to prevent the birth. That's many years right now. It's including the forced sterilization and IUD insertion, and we have numerous eyewitness accounts in hand about the forced sterilization as well. So the birth control policy is being implemented upon Uyghurs is not a secret anymore to anyone. It was there. That reduced the Uyghur population, and I interviewed many women, and it's China's strictly controlled information. That's why we cannot bring out the many cases. But anybody who fled out from the China, if you interviewed them, they have direct experience. Myself, I had after the first child, I had IUD too, and become very sick, and I had very difficulty to remove that one too. I had personal experience about that, and I know many women. One woman recently I interviewed, she had IUD and this 15 years, and she's bleeding. In the country, when she fled out, they had to remove, and they did surgery. After surgery, she's become very sick. She is still bleeding. I'm contacting with her. I don't know if she's going to become okay or not. I have to call her today again because her tummy is swollen right now. So it's harm. The woman is completely. This is a health issue. It's not only about the health issue. It is a genocide because it's a population reduction. When they had an IUD or sterilization, they cannot have second child. So many women try to escape because of their health, and another thing because of our religion, because we cannot prevent the birth in our religion. So people strongly against. For example, in 1990s, Baran incidents mainly was the people in Baran village in 1990s uprising against the birth control at that time, because that's against our religion. We can't accept. And the Chinese government harshly oppressed Baran village at that time. If you read my report in Uyghur Research Institute, I give one Chinese soldier's testimony in that report. More than 3,000 people were killed in that place at that time. The population was 10,000 of that village. And the Chinese soldier described that we should anybody move. Women, children, elderly, doesn't care. Just anybody move. We should. We shot them and we kill them. It's very entertaining, he said. They enjoy the killing people. Anybody is moving, he said. So the Baran uprising might start against this birth control policy of China. So many women try to escape. I know many women who hide, who fled other countries, and many children they have they call illegal children, and those children were registered, not registered by China, because they hide those children, and these children cannot go to school. And if Chinese government find out these children, they say your child is illegal, and they give them fine. And if they find out them before the child were born, even 9 months or 8 months, the pregnancy, they just aborted the child, force women to abort the child. So actually it's a killing the child.
And
So
I can verify this. I remember reporting on this many, many years ago. And this is something that, it makes my heart bleed that when Muslim resource sources are reporting this directly from oppressed Muslim minorities, people don't take it seriously. Even Muslims don't take it seriously. And yet, here, many, many years later, we have the Associated Press, one of the most widely recognized news source in the world, reporting on things that people like you have been saying for decades. And this is something that we have to, this is to all our audience out there, we have to build our own narratives. Can you explain to us, let's listen to this video that we're going to see right now, and can you explain to us what is happening here? If we could start this video.
Yani en akırkı balam kusuğunu kalgandan ki balamın kusuğunu bağlıqını bilip qilqıda kapırlar düşürletmekçi bolğanda Türkiye'ye gelip çıkıp müşahede balamını hatırlayacağım tıqılış maqsada Türkiye'ye çıqqan. Bunu qep qalgan beş balam vatanda. Men ägep qoyup ketgenden keyin yolçumni Xitoyda tufayli 10 yillik turmaga tashladi. Mening yolchumning hech qanday jinoyati yo'q. Hatta şahid vatanda qep qalgan 5 balamni Xitoy kapırlar ata-anamgın bämey, uruq tuqqanlarımgın bämey. Özümnin ailesinden yana Qashqardan Xitoy kapırlar ep ketipdi. Yaqin bolsa 2018 yılı 12 ayının 24 Xutendeki ballar terbiyeleş lagerda yani ballar yığılış lagerdan tatılgan bir videodan kısımını bunu aldım. O kızımın bolsa ismi Ayşe. Şu birligi uç kız şu. Hazır bolsa 6 yaşlık idi. Men yenip kelgen vaqtımda 3 yaşlık qalgan. Başqa ballarımnınki hayatlygyny bilmeýmen, nädligini bilmeýmen. Ballarymny başqa şäherlerge, başqa ýerlerge takyp etgen okşaýdy. Ýakynda wekillerni, halkaralyk wekillerni çakyrdyk. Uygurlar biz işnem qılmaýatymyz, ulany terbiýelewatymyz diýip ýalgan gep kıldy. Eger Uygurlarny işnem qılmagan bolsa, nim dep meniň balamny lagerge tutup gitdi. Meniň balamnyň nime jinaýaty bar eken, ýoldaşymnyň nime jinaýaty bar eken. Bardygan wekiller sizlerden üdünüp galayım. Meniň ballarymnyň nädligini maňa tep barala. Men ballarymnyň hayatmy öýlekmi bilmeýmen.
Can you translate what the sister was saying?
Kalbine Tursun, I had interviewed her 3 years ago. She reported she escaped from East Turkestan and arrived to Turkey. The reason she escaped from East Turkestan because she had 5 children, and they were not allowed to more than 3 children in the village. They living in village, and the farmers, and according to China's birth control policy in the village, you're not allowed to have more than 3 children if you are a farmer. But if you are in the city, not allowed to more than 1 or sometimes 2. So like this, the Kalbine Tursun, she had 5 kids. 2 of them were not. It's outside of the China's birth control policy that China call illegal kids. So like they hide from the government these children, and the government doesn't know. They cannot send them to school. If neighbors even find out, if somebody find out, they will have a problem. So like when she was become pregnant for the 6th child, and they were very afraid because they gonna find out her. So they just find a way. Her husband said, "Okay, you go to Turkey or some other country, so that deliver the baby over there to save the baby. Because if they find out, they're gonna abort the baby. But maybe the mother and the child both going to die in the surgery or operation because they always send like unskilled doctors." So she was afraid, and she went to the Turkey. After she left, she arrived to Turkey. The Chinese government find out she escaped and she was pregnant. They find out she had 5 children. They arrested her husband for having illegal children and sentenced her husband 10 years imprisonment. And the government took her children. They don't know where are these children. Kalbine Tursun, she had a parents, sisters, other siblings, and other relatives. And the Chinese government didn't inform those relatives where about those children. She doesn't know where are these 5 kids. And The one day when she was in Turkey, she recognized her daughter Aisha. Name is Aisha. She recognized Aisha from the China's orphanage camp video, that Douyin TikTok video that one of the Chinese workers sent it to the Douyin, and she recognized one of the girl is her daughter. And she said, "My daughter, when I was left, is 3 years old. Right now, she's 6 years old." She said, and she was separated from her siblings. And this video was it aired, I mean, it's published, distributed in Khitan region, I think, and she's from Kashgar. So the girl was taken to other city, and she doesn't know where's the other siblings too. That's mean Chinese government in orphanage camps separated siblings, and they will not allow these children see their parents or relatives or anybody. So because they would like to completely cut off their biological roots.
And this is part of that, the steps in genocide is when you separate families, it's easier to now take these children who are young children and mold them into whatever you want to mold them in, and to separate them from their own identities. And this has been done in countries around the, native indigenous people in this, in the countries we live in now, has happened to them as well. And you often, and the point to note from this is she saw that on these official websites, and this has been a resource for your research as well, that you often get things from official Chinese websites. Can you tell us more about that?
Chinese websites usually, I rely on TikTok videos, they call Douyin, and the Chinese websites too. For example, the forced marriage, we call forced marriage. They published a lot of women's videos and TikTok that marrying with Han Chinese. They were smiling, and I was thinking, how good, because before the concentration camps start, the Uyghur women is we don't usually, because we're Muslim, we don't marry with Han Chinese. There is not at all. And the Chinese research, and according to Chinese statistics in 2010, the Uyghur women marry with Han Chinese percentage is 1.05% only. And we never seen in anywhere those kinds of picture, or even at the street, we never could see that Uyghur women walking with Han Chinese men. It is impossible. Right now, we can see the photos, videos, and Uyghur women are smiling and look so happy. And I interviewed some of the eyewitnesses who recently arrived, and what is happening, these women, they like to marry with Han Chinese, they just voluntarily marry. And some of them I secretly interviewed too. They told me that if you refuse to marry with them, you were threatened to sent to concentration camps. Not only you, entire family. If you say that, no, I don't want to marry with this guy, I don't like him, this is about the law, you just, even you say nice words, they said, okay, you have ideological problem. Because this guy is Chinese, that's why you're refusing. Because this guy is Chinese, that's why your parents could not convince you. So there's, every neighborhood has a working unit. The working unit, Chinese working unit, just going to people's home and ask the girl to try to convince the girl to marry with Han Chinese. If they refuse and they said, okay, you have ideological problem, maybe you should go to school. The school means, they said, re-education camp, and they put them right away in concentration camps. These girls said, okay, if they put me in concentration camps, is okay, but they're gonna take my mom too. They're gonna take my dad too. So they afraid and they agree. One of the girl in Europe told me, she said Chinese always like a fast confession. Her friend, one of the friend, not sister, married with Han Chinese. When they took a camera, videos, like a journalist come, they put on the website those videos, right? They asked the girl smile. If the girl angry or just cried, she would have problem again. So if she cannot smile, she said she couldn't smile, and they took again. They said, no, not good, smile again. So 65 times they let her to smile at the video to ask her. So they took a video like that. Then they put on website. This is all fake propaganda. These women, they don't want to marry. Most of them, maybe few of them, I don't know. If they don't believe in Islam, maybe marry with Han Chinese, but most of them Uyghurs are Muslim, and they don't marry with Han Chinese. It's totally culture, religion, everything is totally different.
Because Han Chinese men are atheists. They don't believe in God.
They don't believe, and is whatever they, what they eat and what we eat and what kind of lifestyle is, everything is different. We don't usually, we don't buy things from their store. When I was in East Turkestan, we don't go to Chinese store, we don't buy food from Chinese store, even vegetable. So we
And
are,
this is something that I've also have seen pictures of young Uyghur women making like how we pray in ruku, like they make them do ruku to the Chinese flag on their wedding day. So
yes,
I've seen pictures of that as well. That is something very common, and the clothes that they're wearing, even brides, Uyghur brides don't wear those clothes. They're wearing red Han Chinese outfits. So this is so these are some, and you've been in connection and you've been talking to, and you were also saying, can you share with us some of the videos that have been sent to you in private, where some of the now these young women, they turn 18 and they're on their own going to what you believe are forced labor camps.
yeah, I sent you that video, right?
Yes, I believe we have that video. Sadiq, if we could pull that up. It was a video of young women. I think it's a TikTok video, and on the train station, and they're being taken into mainland China.
Yeah.
Right.
The Chinese government has transferred mainly young Uyghur women from East Turkestan to factories across inland China that could be providing supplies to global companies such as Nike, Apple, Volkswagen, and Dell, right? So according to Australian Policy Research Institute in March last year, 80,000 Uyghurs have been transferred into forced labor, and most of them are women. March and of this year, despite the pandemic of Wuhan virus, the Chinese government sent close to 1,000 Uyghurs from East Turkestan to inland China for forced labor. Additionally, again, the Chinese government have forcibly sent 30,000 Uyghur workers from Hotan prefecture to the inland China ongoing quarantine time and this year. And that I read from the Chinese websites, newspaper, Chinese news, state-sponsored news reports. I read it. They say and the China's Guangdong and the Shenzhen cities, less developed areas, are both expecting 100,000 Uyghur forced labor in this year. Even and if you go to some Chinese social media, they said I have 1,000 Uyghur women labor for labor. Who wants to buy? They're selling like a slave,
Yeah, let's be clear about this. I mean, this is something that I've been seeing on social media and in these reports. Forced labor sounds so benign. This is slavery.
Yeah.
People are being sold, like advertisements are being placed. How much? It pains to say this, but what do these advertisements say?
Those advertisements say we train a job for them, we find a job, we providing job for them, and these women are going to work, and they have skills to work, and because they're Muslim, before they are like staying at home, now we give the rights to women, and that they can live from the family, and they can go far, and they become independent and free. That's the advertisement China giving, but none of the Uyghur girls want to go that far and that different culture or somewhere for slavery labor. They don't want to go. That's why we call forced labor. These women, for example, I just saw one video. It's the girl in Australia. Her sister was, I have another interviews too. Her sister was nurse, and she had 2 kids. She was not sent to inland China, but she was sent to forced labor inside East Turkestan. You're right. It's a slavery labor because they don't pay. The Chinese said we pay to them. Maybe some companies is different, is pay a little bit. That's why we cannot say totally this is slavery labor. And we say because these women doesn't want to go, we said they were forced or forced labor. And these women, that video, that woman, she was a nurse. Does she need a job training and to find out the job and to go work on those kind of manufactories? No, right? So she was a nurse before. She was helping people, and she had 2 kids. And she talked to her sister in Australia through video. That video was published, and she said, because she performed really well, working hard, and it listened to the guard all the time. They allow her to see her children 2 weeks once or once a month. Not every woman in these forced labor or slavery labor camp has this privilege to see their children if they have children. So she came to see her 2 children, and when she visited her children, she right away contacted with her sister in Australia. She said, "Speak up for me. I can't get out from here. You stand up for me." It was very emotional. And so these women, many of them are, they have job. They are, some of them are scientists, some of them are doctors, some of them are teachers. And I myself interviewed one girl. She was a primary school teacher, and she was sent to forced labor camp in inland China, Chengdu, in some city. She's disappeared right now. I lost contact. She had 2 children in East Turkestan. She doesn't know where about these children. She didn't see her children already 3 years. So, and this is crazy. You know, these Chinese government doing totally, absolutely doing propaganda. Many of these women, they no need those kind of jobs. They already have jobs. Some of them, they just sustaining their family by themselves. Many Uyghur women are helping in helping their families and farm. So they can provide themselves economically, and they, even they don't need to go. East Turkestan is very rich land. We have a lot of natural resources, and we have a lot of job opportunity there too. If this woman doesn't have a job, staying at home, and China should provide a job for them in inland China, why China create 70,000 jobs and bring it to young Chinese students or Chinese people from inland China for this job position, advertised in the Chinese website? We created 17,000 jobs in Xinjiang region just to come and take this job. They have advertised for the Chinese. Why they sending these Uyghur women and the young Uyghurs just to graduate high school, and they sending them to inland China and provide the job to Chinese people they bring the Chinese people from inland China to East Turkestan then. So that's the conflict here, right?
And these are factories that are producing things that people around the world use. So, you know, we titled this show, "Are Your Shoes Made by Slaves?" And this is reality. Can you share with us some of the companies that are using forced labor or enslaved labor?
80% of cotton comes from East Turkestan. Anything made with cotton, made in China, should be maybe made by those slave women, the Uyghur women, the slavery labor. And these women's condition, if you think about, you have children too, maybe, and a lot of people, when you buy the Chinese goods, think about your family and your children. Because these women, to make these Chinese goods, they were sent to inland China. Their family were fall apart. And they don't know where their husband, they don't know where their children. In Turpan, I saw that one person put YouTube in one video, 80% houses are empty. Where are these Uyghurs? All those families are destroyed. We don't know where about those children too, and what kind of condition those Uyghur children in Chinese orphanage camps, what they are going through, we don't know. Keeping these women for many years in inland China is a separation of sexes and a creation of prohibition on marriage for these Uyghur women with Uyghur men in their community, as they are not allowed to return to their community and participate in reproduction. And this is a genocide. Especially these women in inland China, they were not allowed to return, even they were sick. I have one video where a girl whole body was swollen. She was very sick, but she was not allowed to return, even she could not work. And they not let them to go anywhere, even for shopping. They put bracelet on their hand, and she showed me, and I had the one photo too. I cannot show the photo of that girl because of her safety. That person is GPS. They monitoring them. You're gonna come back in 10 minutes if they police permission, they have to ask the manager's permission, so many permission, and if they have something very urgent and they have to go somewhere. So like they give them only 1 hour or half an hour or sometimes 10-minute time. So the GPS monitoring you wherever you go, how long you stay, who do you talk with, and the GPS has a camera. And she said they know, they can find out. Maybe there, I don't know. She said maybe has a camera. She doesn't know really or not. They just worried that GPS controlling them wherever they go. They're just actually prisoners, like a prisoners. It's like exactly slaves. So if anybody buy those kind of Chinese goods, so you are sharing the crime of genocide, or just a part of them.
And this is so serious, like, because people often ask us, what can we do? People who are concerned, people who don't want this to be happening in today's day and time, but we still find it so hard to hold these companies accountable, because, and this is something that I often share with people, especially when we go to Congress and stuff, is that many of these corporations have outsourced their labor to China. And things that are being made in China are often much cheaper than the similar thing that is being made in other parts of the world. And you wonder why. Why are they able to make things cheaper in China? And this is one major aspect of it, is because they have no labor, or no to little labor costs. When you're enslaving people and forcing people to work and giving them maybe a few pennies, or just feeding them, we've heard other reports of some of these inmates in the forced labor camps maybe being given one meal a day, and it's like boiled vegetables, just it's just not enough to sustain someone's health. It's just barely enough to keep you alive. Then obviously you are saving money on your costs. And when you are saving money on your costs, you can now sell that thing below cost, and other companies and other countries cannot compete with you. So this is the main, and this makes the most sense, because even despite like other, and I'm the thing that I wanted to especially talk to my audience with is that after hearing all of this, if we still feel like the brand name items that we wear, whether it's Polo from Ralph Lauren or Calvin Klein or any of the Fila, Adidas just announced that they would be not using any sourced labor from that region, and this just came out a few days ago. But there are 82 other companies on that list. How many of us are willing to make that sacrifice of not buying new shoes or new clothes from these companies? And this is something, what would you like to say to people on boycotting goods made in China?
People should boycott made in China goods to prevent China sending these Uyghur women to inland China. Because China, the purpose is sending these Uyghur women to inland China, not slave labor, because they don't allow these women return to come back to the East Turkestan. Most of the women in high school graduate, young students. So these women, if they were not allowed to return, and there is no Uyghur man in inland China, so they may be married with the Han Chinese man and stay there. So that's how biologically trying to China eradicating the Uyghurs, and that's the genocide, and because that's reduced the population grow as well, and it's a slavery as well, and it's totally destroyed the families and the children. So when people think about it, if you think yourself a human, if you think you are connected to other human, and you not think about your few dollars, right? You have to think about the others' value too. We donate, we give charity, we want to help people because we want to show our value. This is how you're helping other people. When you want to buy the Chinese goods, maybe you're going to prevent so many women to going to inland China. Mm-hmm. So how many people become slave over there? You're going to prevent so many women become slave. When you don't buy Chinese goods, you're gonna prevent so many children become orphanage and suffering in Chinese orphanage camps and become Chinese, lost the religion. And you're going to prevent so many families are destroyed. So this is every human being's obligation to boycott Chinese made in China goods and boycott those companies or not only not buying the Chinese goods, but you can organize protests. Right now we have pandemics, we can't do it. Or later we can organize protests on those shareholders conference meetings, front of the conference meetings when those companies have a meetings, and we can protest front of their door. We can send a letter to them to affiliated or does investing the China, and we have to prevent those companies to share the crime of genocide as well, because transnational companies are complicit in facilitating those biological extermination of Uyghurs and other Turkic Muslims in Muslims by the Chinese government, right? Because those investment of transnational companies assist the production of oppression of China by creating asymmetrical political power, market power and social power by providing incentives, motivation to the Chinese colonizers in East Turkestan. So these...
Okay, I have a question. If you don't mind, you just said something that was very important. We have to bring it back to the evidence that there are local governments and private brokers who are bribed with a price per head in order to force them to organize these forced labor camps. So in the BBC report, there's journalist Nathan Rooser said that this practice has strong characteristics of exploitation in the global supply chain. And you just mentioned that global supply chain. Can you explain how that works and, what all human rights violations take place in that supply chain? So you've shared with us how some of these women, men and women, but mostly women, are arriving in these forced labor camps. But as the chain goes down, how does that occur? If you have any insight on that.
Because the local markets, local companies, and as they using the slavery, they're gonna offer cheaper product to the other companies, and they're gonna make more money too. So they were thinking, okay, if we produce those products in China, we're gonna get more money. So they're thinking about money. But in fact, those kind of asymmetrical political power, the market power and the social power, by providing to motives, incentives to the Chinese colonizers in East Turkestan, actually they make those Chinese colonizers rich, and the money going to those Chinese companies, because the labor are free for them. They can make more money. Even the global companies pay to them. They make free, right? So they're gonna make more money and they become stronger. And all of these Chinese companies are controlled by the Chinese state. It's not the private in China. So like every company behind has a Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese state. So the money, when China becomes stronger and those companies become richer, the Chinese state become rich, and actually Chinese Communist Party become rich, and Chinese military become rich. And when the Chinese military become rich, when they become the Chinese government spend more money to Chinese military, and they become so aggressive, because a very dangerously nationalistic country that China right now. So they would like to expand to the whole world, and it's a threat. So it's not only the buying Chinese goods and helping China, is those companies is not only to sharing the crime of genocide, it is helping to all of China, threatening the whole world because of the New Silk Road project and other projects they would like to expand to the world. It is not only about the Uyghurs, it's about you and me. If this autocratic regime spread to the world, think about your children and my children. What's going to happen to them? Are we going to still able to live in free country? We still gonna able to live free like this, have a speech freedom? No, we become like a Uyghurs right now. So what is happening to Uyghurs today, it's gonna be happen to you in tomorrow maybe. So that's why this is not only about the Uyghurs. Because of the globalization, it's gonna spread very quickly. So it's gonna be a threat for everyone.
They're the canary in the coal mine. things are being tested out on them, and it will spread around the globe. One of the things that we've seen, some of these companies, when they're addressed, when they're asked about their labor practices, what they say is, no, we have verification process, and we go in there, and in the verification process, we have interviews with the labor force. And so what do you have to say about that verification process?
They don't know. Maybe they were thinking they just go there and interview China, and then they were thinking, oh, okay, so everything is okay. Maybe they don't know, because they were not actually directly working with these women or those slave labor people. So the China always create fake things, and they force people to confess, give fake interviews, like nothing happened, blah blah. The Chinese government always do that. So how we're gonna trust them? There's no transparency, so we don't believe them. What if it's happened? Why? What happened to these women? What is the interview that we gathered? So why it's that, where comes from those issues, if everything is okay? So these companies should know that verification is not reliable. So they have to think about it, what to do, how to deal with those local Chinese companies, and how to invest, or actually even they talk with them, and everything has to be okay. Maybe things going to be changing, and it is very difficult. China not going to listen to them anyway. So better is cut off the relationship, get out from China. So when there is no companies, less company, less slavery labor, less women going to go there. We're going to save more women and the more children.
Now, one of the things that as we start to wrap up, I wanted to ask you, what are your expectations from the United Nations, especially with the report that came out today? And what other things do you think other nations can do?
The United Nations should recognize what's happening in East Turkestan as a hidden genocide, or at least they have to do some prevention measures to prevent the genocide. Because the Rwanda, what's happening in Rwanda, what's happening in Rohingya and everywhere. So after everything has happened, hundreds of millions of people dead, then they're gonna recognize this is genocide. What is the point then, after so many people were killed? Right now, it's what is happening in East Turkestan is exactly fit the Genocide Convention Law, Article 2, the measurement, the category of these Article 2 and Genocide Convention Law in United Nations. So the United Nations has to use some measurement to prevent the genocide, and send the independent obligation to there. And other countries, they have to be aligned, like-minded countries, like United States, they have to be aligned together to give pressure to China. Economic sanction works very well, but only U.S. government doing this and other government not doing, and the Chinese government said, you see, this is just a pawn of America. They just are playing. They just are using Uyghur cause against us. There is no such issue. That's American story. That's not the American story. There is things that exist, issues exist. And American didn't create this story. Millions of people in the concentration camp and suffering. So many people are dead, we don't know. So many people suffering at slavery labor. That's America, the creation of American story? No, this is a fact, right? So the countries should know that and align it with the United States, and do something against China. Stop China. If not, China is going to be a threat to the whole world. It's going to be a threat to other countries as well.
And you have insight that a few people have, and I really wanted to wrap this session up with you talking about the mental and psychological effects of this on the Uyghur women. What has this oppression done to your generation, and not only just your generation? We see images of 80-year-old women pushing wheelbarrows that young, healthy men can't push because all their men are gone. What has this done to the Uyghur women?
this extreme human rights violation and genocide, what China doing, the cause is not only because this whole nation is their mosques were destroyed, religion were banned, and their language are banned, and they were monitored 24 hours with the technologies, right? So when you are like that, your freedom, your individual freedom, your thinking ability, your talking ability, your every movement, were controlled by somebody, and you lost your independence, like independence, mental and physical independence. If it's continues like that, the effect going to be generational. Even the one day Uyghurs become independent, effect going to be still generational, because it's going to form the whole nation's character, whole nation's mentality and the mental ability, thinking ability. This effect going to be generational, and it's not limited in East Turkestan. Inside these people, I believe Uyghur people straightness because we believe in God. That's why we don't lost hope, and when we don't lost hope, we are so strong, right? We are not empty and inside. When it suffer is, somebody say suffer is like gas. When you are empty, it's gonna fill everywhere. When inside you are spiritually not empty, it cannot, suffer cannot fill up your complete. So it's, we believe in Allah. So I believe that Uyghur straightness and other Turkic Muslim straightness as well. The suffer maybe cannot completely destroy them, but still it's an effect, right? Because it's this kind of suffer is impossible to tolerate. This is inhuman, and it's not going to limit it in East Turkestan. There's so many people, so many young kids in outside of East Turkestan. I know so many of them. Their parents are in the prison. There's some kids, some young people, midnight, they just scream and wake up, and they saw their mother in the prison and screaming, and they crying. So like this psychological effect, it's affect the Uyghur diaspora as well. I myself, it's impossible to tolerate those stories every day. You see those kind of videos every day. It's gonna affect you, and I feel like feel depressed, and I feel like I have anxiety, and I easily angry. I was not like that before. I don't cry easily before, but right now I cry easily and I get angry easily. I'm not a calm and like a confident like before. So its effect is not limited inside East Turkestan, and it's going to be generational, I think.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing everything that you've shared with us. You know, a lot of times people think it's just numbers. It's just, I read this, a headline. It's not headlines, it's real people's lives that are millions and millions of them. And so, as we wrap up today, thank you so much for being here. And to our audience, just want to say, you know, watch this again, rewind it, and listen to what Rukiye has said over and over again, because you have, you can do something. You can do something. We believe in the power of one person because we've seen one person change a whole entire society. This is a part of our history. So we believe that you can be that one person wherever you are. Thank you so much for being here. Boycott China, fast from China. This is how we're going to get them hit their pockets.
Thank
Assalamu
you
alaikum.
so much.